we have with us Vern Llewellyn, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And I'm just going to ask you a few questions about your service in the war. Okay. So, how did you get into the Army? Were you drafted or did you enlist?
Well, to start with, I was in high school, and the minute Japan bombed us, all of us wanted to go in right away. Even though it was only a semester to go, we're ready to go. However, it didn't work out that way because I was too young. So I did finish high school.
So how old were you?
I was 17 when I finished high school. And I so wanted to get in the Air Corps. That was the more romantic of these services, I thought, as you would as a youngster. But then when I did try to enlist in the Air Corps, I was 18. I got to that 18 spot, eyes were bad. So I was kind of irritated about the whole thing. I waited. It wasn't very long. I was drafted then. So a little of both. I tried.
Okay, so you wanted to enlist, but you ended up being drafted.
Right, that's good.
Okay. And where exactly did you serve? What unit and what were you doing in the Army?
Well, our first, of course, was the basic training, followed by 2 weeks of battle training. And that was in Fort Knox, Kentucky. And from the end of battle training, we went to 10 weeks of mechanic schools as a truck mechanic, tank mechanic, whatever was needed. And on finishing that, we shipped on to Camp Chaffee, Arkansas, where the 16th Armored Division was formed, and went in around our task. However, I didn't end up as a mechanic.
What did you end up as?
Well, I was in ordnance, and I was really trained to drive everything. Anything they had, I was trained to drive that. But my basic job was to take care of tank parts, driving a truck with all the different parts needed for repairs of tanks. So,
I bet you had a lot of repairs to do.
well, I had a lot of things to do, yeah.
I'm sure you did. Okay, what would you say was your worst day or your worst experience during the war?
I don't know whether I can answer that or not. My worst day was the first day. First day when we got to
Okay.
Knox, Kentucky, because, well, the whole situation, lonely. I want to go home already, of course. But that was the worst.
Okay, and is there anything, it's probably hard to just pick one thing, but that you would definitely never forget about the war?
Well, I really think that getting into Czechoslovakia was the biggest thing because of the difference. You go in other towns, or you're waiting to see who's going to shoot you and what the activity is going to be. And you get into Pilsen, Czechoslovakia, and there's all of the people in costumes and carrying beer and food, and of course the snipers are still active, and these people running all around, and they're in much danger as we are, but they were just as happy as could be in the middle of everything. Just unbelievable situations.
That's great. And how did you get to Europe? Like, did you start with the Normandy invasion, or?
Well, we were a little late for Normandy, excuse me, but we came into Le Havre, France, in that particular area.
And for you, where did the war end? What was your last time of actually working? Was it here in Pilsen, or?
It was right here in Pilsen when the war ended. Yeah.
Okay, so you didn't ship out to Asia following that?
Well, we say that's when the war ended in Pilsen, but they kind of broke us up and sent us to different areas. I went to Mariansky Lozny, Marienbad, and then I was shipped back into Germany. Well, I went to Plana, then I went back into Germany to prepare our ordnance battalion to go to Japan. The 16th Armored had been divided up and went our separate ways. But I went to an ordnance, getting that ordnance company ready to go into Japan.
And did you ever make it to Japan?
Nope. A-bomb did it for us. not very anxious to go over there.
I'm sure. Tell us a little bit about your experience here in Pilsen with the celebration, the liberation. What was the atmosphere like? Describe it for us.
Well, I tried to do that a little bit ago with these people in costumes. They're jumping up on your tank, and I was driving a half-track at that time. They'd get up on the tank with the beer and flowers and everything. Oh, why? What a war this is.
How did you communicate?
Not very well, but the communication was not necessary. You know, you'd like to have had it, but the reaction of both sides is just nothing but happiness. So you don't need a lot of communication on that. It was there, not vocally.
That's great. It must have been amazing. Now, Europe and the Czech Republic are quite different from the United States in their mentality and their culture. Can you remember anything that was surprising for you when you first got here?
Well, of course, the destruction. Just unbelievable that all of that had taken place. But I don't know if I can answer that right. Try me again on that.
Well, did you find the people much different from your American friends? I realize you couldn't communicate, but were there cultural differences that surprised you or you didn't know about?
Well, I knew a little bit about the Czechoslovakia because of my youth of being a stamp collector and for worldwide. But then you see a country like Czechoslovakia. Wow, that must be interesting. You know? So I did study up a little bit. It paid off later when we came in here to celebration. Paid off because I had got to escort Shirley Temple Black into a meeting because I'd answered some questions about music in Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, about Dvorak and all. And they were quite impressed that I knew that, so I was chosen. However, I'm her escort. She's there, I'm 2 steps back. Don't touch her. Don't say anything to her. That was being an escort of Shirley Temple Black.
And what did you do after the war when you returned?
Well, as I mentioned before, I was in high school, senior in high school. So that took care of that. That was full-time, of course. And when I got home, I think most of the fellows, when they got home, said they're not going to do anything for 2 years. Just lay around and giggle and drink, I suppose. But that didn't last very long. 2 days, I was offered a job in the post office. It could have been a very good job and a good future, but it wasn't very challenging. And I so wanted to play college football, which is idiot, I know, but couldn't get it out of my mind. So 2 months in the post office, I went on to college and got my wish to play football.
Where did you go to college?
We went to a small college in Chadron. Chadron State is the name of it. It's very small, but I'm from a small area anyway, small towns. I loved it. I thought everything was great. First year, I think we won 2 out of 10 because we weren't really training very well. But we decided we'd train and see how it was, and it was a lot better, a lot more.
That's great. Did you ever come back to Czechoslovakia while it was under communism?
No, I didn't even think about it. I've been told that you couldn't get in anyway. So.
Okay. And then did you hear about the lie that they were taught in Czechoslovakia, that it was the Russians who dressed up as Americans?
Well, I sure did. 1990 and 91, those stories were very prevalent.
And what did you think when you heard that?
I think initially I was surprised, but then, but knowing the Russians personally in the war, right after the war, I understood that's no doubt right.
Okay. Thank you.